Hi, this is Girish here, and thank you for tuning into my channel. Uh, as usual, I keep coming out with tutorials, and today I'm with another new tutorial, and this is in the series of retrograde planet. This is the last tutorial on retrograde series. Of course, it's not our last tutorial in total. This is the last tutorial on retrograde series, and this is going to be on planet Venus, retrograde Venus. Before continuing further, I would request all those audience who have come for the first time on my YouTube channel to please like and subscribe the channel, and also go through the other series that I've mentioned on retrograde planet. One is on the introduction of retrograde planet. How does a planet turn retrograde? What are the impacts of a retrograde planet? And then get into the specifics of those planets. I've put a video on retrograde Jupiter, retrograde Mars, retrograde Mercury, retrograde Saturn. Please go through all the videos, because unfortunately I've seen in astrology not many astrologers talk about retrograde planet. So retrograde planet is a very detrimental position in the natal chart, right? It is also detrimental in the transit chart, but more severe in the natal chart. I've seen a lot of people struggling in their life because of retrograde planet placements in their natal chart. As always, I connect planets with their respective houses, respective bhavas. Also, you have to see the respective zodiacs, and of course, but that cannot be covered here, because it becomes too lengthy in terms of pulling the video. But I'm trying to connect, the retrograde planet with their respective houses, like the first house, second house, third house, fourth house, so on and so forth, until the 12th house, right? So let us see what is Venus standing for at the first place, and then we will see what happens when a retrograde Venus gets connected with the natal chart, right? See, Venus stands for female, and it's a feminine planet. Okay, so be it a male chart or a female chart, it signifies females in general, particularly peer group, right? So when I talk about peer group for a male chart, it becomes the opposite partner. So it can be taken as your wife, it can be taken as your girlfriend, it can be taken as your colleagues who work with you. In general, women of your age group, of your stature, so on and so forth, right? So it's very important to have a good placement of Venus. Okay, when I say good placement, the signification of Venus is very, very important. Soon, I'll be doing a video soon on signification, how to check signification. So for all those people who have been giving me a feedback, so to come out with how signification works, very soon I'm going to do a video on signification. But for the time being, just understand. Each of these planets signify houses, and Venus signifies, as a planet, it signifies female, and its connection with the other respective houses, like the first house until the 12th house, is very important, as it indicates what is going to happen or how is your relation with Venus in general is going to be, right? So coming back to Venus stands for good taste. It stands for jewelry. It stands for when I say jewelry, particularly, it stands for diamonds, right? It also stands for clothing, right? It stands for your face, your facial expression in general, right? So Venus is a very important planet. It's in terms of giving some fruitful results to a human being. Okay, Venus is also a very important planet when it comes to entertainment. So all those people who are facing the camera, right, or who are into the business of entertainment, will have a very good placement of Venus, right? So unfortunately, if this Venus gets retrograde in a natal chart, then the person is likely to have too many problems, right? Also, Venus signifies money, in general, because in Kal Purusha Tattva principle, Venus is the ruler of Taurus as well as Libra. So in the natural zodiac sign, it rules the second house and the seventh house. That's the reason we take it as a spouse in a male chart, which is your wife, and it signifies money matters also, because it rules the natural second house, the Kal Purusha Tattva Yoga. So these are some of the general indications of what happens when Venus, or how does Venus play a role in your natal chart. Now let's see what happens specifically if this planet turns retrograde. Okay, as it is, I keep saying, see, retrograde motion in the natal chart is a very bad placement. There are problems. The moment a planet is retrograde, especially the 5 planets that I've been doing right now, it will create problems. All right. So let us see what happens when Venus gets connected with the first house. The retrograde Venus gets connected with the first house, right? See, the first house is the Tanu Bhava. It is about yourself, right? So a retrograde planet, any retrograde planet getting connected with the first house, it affects your personality. Okay. More so if it is Venus, because Venus is for beauty. It stands for a certain personality, good appearance, good thought process, good thinking ability. So if Venus gets affected through retrograde placement, that too in the natal chart, the person will have poor personality. I've seen this in many charts where people having a retrograde Venus getting connected with the first house, they will have problems with their personality. Sometimes they are too emotional, especially when it comes to the opposite sex. So in a male chart, if a retrograde Venus gets connected with the first house, the person will have some tendency to get closer to a female partner. All right. So this is a weakness which happens for a male chart, male horoscope, when retrograde Venus gets connected with the first house, right? Also, the person will have a poor understanding about women in general, be it a male chart or even a female chart. If you have a retrograde Venus getting connected with the first house, there is always a poor understanding about females of the peer group or females of the same age group, whatever you say, right? So this is very important to have a good placement of Venus, particularly a direct motion, right? Now let's see what happens when retrograde motion, Venus gets connected with the second house, right? As I mentioned earlier, retrograde Venus, or rather Venus in itself, signifies money. It signifies your face, it signifies anything which is beautiful, right? It signifies your ability to speak, because it is also the lord of second house in the natural zodiac sign, right? So what happens is, when a retrograde Venus gets connected with the second house, you have problems in all these areas. Your speech is generally very sweet when you have a Venus connection with the second house, but because of a retrograde Venus, it is sweet, but it is irregular. You don't know how to present it at the right time, right? Sometimes you have a lack of choice of words to express yourself. In other words, articulation becomes a problem. This is a common problem that I've seen when a retrograde Venus gets connected with the second house. Also, your expressions are sometimes, very weird, may not be very impressive the way it should be, unlike Venus gets connected with the second house. So, a retrograde Venus getting connected with the second house, the expression part is also something which is not very impressive. Same goes with your dressing sense, because the second house stands for attire. And Venus is also the planet for attire. So there is a problem in your dressing sense. Somewhere people do not appreciate it, or somewhere you find yourself not up to the mark when it comes to your dressing sense, right? Now let's see what happens when retrograde Venus gets connected with the third house, right? See, third house also stands for communication. It also stands for short travel. It stands for your younger siblings. Especially if retrograde Venus signifies the third house, you will have a younger sister, right? Or even a Venus in general signifying the third house, you will have a younger sister, right? I have seen problems in relationship with your siblings in that case, especially if you have a sister, right? Also, there is a problem when it comes to your communication. Sometimes your communication skills are like, it might look brilliant externally, but when you actually put them into practice, there will be shortcomings. Okay, so especially for extempore in any of these activities, I have seen people struggling a lot when they have a retrograde Venus getting connected with the third house, right? Also, third house signifies courage and inclination. So there is some shortcoming in these two areas. Okay, your courage may not be up to the mark. Your inclination towards the subject will also not be up to the mark. So these are some shortcomings that you will have when you have a third house getting connected with the retrograde Venus. Travel is always a problem, especially to exotic destinations. You will find very difficult or very, very poor experience in these places, because Venus signifies beauty. So anything which is beautiful, unfortunately, retrograde will not have a good response coming up. So travel is also a problem for such placements in the natal chart. Okay. Now let's see what happens when retrograde Venus gets connected with fourth house. See, in one of my videos, I think it was in Saturn, retrograde Saturn, as well as in retrograde Mars, I had categorically mentioned, see, fourth house signifies your mother, it signifies your house, it signifies your vehicle, it signifies your surroundings in general, right? Whenever you have a retrograde Venus getting connected with, or whenever, so somebody came up to me inquiring this, when you say fourth house, does the fourth house signify all these things? It does signify, but it has to get connected with the relevant planet. For example, if you're talking about properties, Mars and the fourth house should have a connection. Only then you will be inclined to buy a property. Similarly, if you have, connection of moon with the fourth house. I keep saying moon will always have connection with the fourth house, which indicates that you're born through your mother's womb, right? So moon plus fourth house stands for mother. Similarly, when Venus and the fourth house gets connected, only then we talk about vehicle. A lot of people go to D16 chart, to see their vehicle. That's why I say don't go to these charts, because it's not going to give you any help. Just see the connection of Venus and the fourth house. You will get in the D1 chart, that too, you will get the answers to your query, right? So a retrograde Venus getting connected with the fourth house, there is always a problem with your vehicle. I had somebody who used to come and consult me in the recent past. He always had a problem with his vehicle. So the first thing that I saw was there was a connection between Venus and the fourth house. Okay, so I told him, look, whenever you buy a vehicle in your name, there is going to be a problem. Ideally, possibly, you should book a vehicle in the name of your spouse. So that will ensure that the problems are not severe, or you control the problems that keep cropping up on and off. So fourth house and Venus is very important, because what happens is your vehicles are signified by Venus in the fourth house. So if you have a retrograde Venus with the fourth house, always there will be problem, right? Also, Venus also signifies which is anything beautiful, So fourth house is your surroundings. So somewhere your surroundings will be beautiful, but there would be some shortcoming. Okay, because of this retrograde placement of Venus in the natal chart. So these are some shortcomings that you'll have when Venus gets connected with the fourth house, a retrograde Venus getting connected with the fourth house, right? Now let's see what happens when a retrograde Venus gets connected with the fifth house, right? See, as I said, fifth house is actually for entertainment, it is actually for fun, anything which is like, having a relaxed attitude, so on and so forth. Some people also talk about fifth house as children. I don't say no to it completely, but I believe eighth house is more important than fifth house, because eighth house is fetus, Venus, eighth house is fetus, and fifth house is childbirth. So after the childbirth, we take the fifth house into consideration, right? So here, if a retrograde Venus gets connected with the fifth house, and if you have a daughter, there would be some troubled relationship. 100% there will be some troubled relationship. So I've seen several charts where a retrograde Venus signifying fifth house, they have problems with that child, especially a daughter. Either the daughter will not listen to you, or there will be constant clashes, misunderstanding, be it mother or be it father, right? There will be some issues when retrograde Venus gets connected with the fifth house, right? Also, you will be too much fun loving sometimes, because fifth house is entertainment, Venus is also signifying entertainment, right? So what happens is, too much of entertainment becomes sometimes, it diverts your focus to something which is not relevant, right? So retrograde Venus getting connected with fifth house will have these issues. Add to this, you will have too many romantic relationships sometimes. I have seen people having retrograde Venus with the fifth house. Fifth house also stands for romance. People will have more than one romantic relationship, okay? Or they may have constant breakups, right? So these are some problems that you have when a retrograde Venus gets connected with the fifth house. Now let's see what happens when a retrograde Venus gets connected with the sixth house. See, as I always keep saying, sixth house is a rogue sthan, it is the house of disease. Any planet having connection with the sixth house will have some problem with regard to disease, right? So what happens is, question is, what planet does Venus, what part of your body does Venus signify, and how does it get connected with the sixth house? Sixth house being a house of disease, Venus stands for pancreas, Venus stands for your intestines, okay. Fifth house, sixth house is also below your abdomen, right? So these are areas where you will have constant problem if you have a retrograde Venus getting connected with the sixth house, right? Also, Venus being a female planet, I have seen this in almost every chart, there is misunderstanding with women, especially peer groups. More so if you're a female and if you have a retrograde Venus getting connected with the sixth house, I have seen constant enmity with the peer groups. Either those peers will not like you, or you will not like your peers. There will be misunderstandings, constant disputes. Okay. Again, if you're into relationship, any kind of relationship, there will be constant trouble in that relationship. Sixth house is enmity, right, and confrontation in some way. And if you have a Venus getting connected with the sixth house, definitely there will be some kind of a confrontation which will bother you more often, right? So a sixth house placement with Venus is generally not considered to be good. Okay. Now, if a retrograde Venus gets connected with the seventh house, okay. See, seventh house, as I keep saying, it's your opposite partner. Okay. Now, opposite partner need not be a person of opposite gender. Okay, it could be anybody who's opposite to you. So it could be a boss, it could be your audience for me, for example. It could be me in your natal chart, right? So when you have a retrograde Venus getting connected with the seventh house, and again Venus being a female planet, there is always a dispute with females. Especially if you have a female audience. There would be constant, what we say in Hindi as tu tu main, right? There will be always disputes or some kind of a confrontation which will bother the two sides, right? It will be more bothering from your natal chart because it's affecting your natal chart. So seventh house connection with retrograde Venus is also not a great placement. I have also seen in extreme cases divorce because it stands for your spouse in a male chart, or it indicates some kind of a separation which is which cannot be recovered. Like once the damage is done, it cannot be recovered. So retrograde Venus placement with the seventh house or getting connected with the seventh house is a very bad connection, right? Now let's see what happens when a retrograde Venus gets connected with the eighth house. See, this placement is very bad, especially if you're a female. Of course, even for male members is very bad. But let's talk about the female side. So if you have a retrograde Venus getting connected with the eighth house, Venus also signifies uterus. I did not bring this point earlier because I wanted to specifically highlight this with the eighth house. See, a lot of people curse the eighth house, by saying eighth house is bad. I agree to the point, eighth house has got a lot of negatives and positives, right? But eighth house is also very important in a natal chart, right? So for a female, it signifies uterus. And if you have a retrograde Venus getting connected with the eighth house, there will be some problem with your uterus. Okay. I have seen either the uterus to be too elastic, in extreme cases when I talk about medical astrology. I have seen this happening more often. It will be too elastic in certain cases, or sometimes it can be too rigid also. So there would be some problems when it comes to delivering a child, right? More so, I've seen retrograde Venus getting connected with the eighth house. The chances of conceiving a daughter is very high. Okay, of course, I'm not encouraging any kind of gender discrimination out here. Okay, but yes, I've seen one thing out here. This is purely academic, so please don't get me wrong. There are instances or there are combinations where a female child may not take birth if you have a retrograde Venus getting connected with the eighth house. But yes, if you have a female child or daughter, they too will have some kind of a health problem. Okay, this can be termed as hereditary. Of course, I'm keeping a track on this just to understand how the karma plays a role. But I've seen if a retrograde Venus getting connected in the mother's chart, even the daughter's chart will have some connection of retrograde Venus with the eighth house. Okay, so there is some karma play coming out here. I'm trying my best to come out in the research that I'm doing it. But yes, these are some problems that I see when a retrograde Venus getting connected with the eighth house. Add to this, this is also called Stri Dosha Sthan. There is a curse of a woman in your earlier life. Okay, especially if you have a retrograde Venus getting connected with the 8th house, right? So there will always be some problem with women, right? Now let's see what happens when a retrograde Venus gets connected with the 9th house, right? See, 9th house is your fortune, your father. Okay, it is also your ability to convince the opposite person. The ability to comprehend. The opposite person is able to comprehend you. Okay, whenever you have a retrograde planet getting connected with the 9th house, there is problem, right? Here, if a retrograde Venus gets connected with the 9th house, the father of the native will have problems with women. It is slightly the other way around, because 9th house also signifies father, right? So they will have some problems with women. Okay, there is also a problem when it comes to higher learning, because 9th house also stands for higher learning, especially if you are interested in learning anything to do with creativity. Okay, I came across somebody who had a retrograde Venus getting connected with the 9th house. They were trying their best to get an admission in a foreign university for they had an interest towards designing, multimedia and designing, but for some reason or the other they couldn't get the admission as per their choice. So I had made it very clear long back that, look, you will be having problems in these areas, so just be prepared and work hard accordingly, right? So normally I've seen a retrograde Venus getting connected with the 9th house, higher studies gets affected, more so if you're interested towards advertisement, learning, media, mass media, so on and so forth, right? Now let's see what happens when retrograde Venus gets connected with the 10th house. See, 10th house is your karma sthan, right? As it is, when I talk about retrograde connection with the 10th house, it is always a problem. Okay, it becomes even more problematic if you are into the area of cinema or media or anything of this glamorous role that you play, because 9th house is your karma sthan and Venus stands for anything which has to do with entertainment, right? So I came across somebody who did not want to reveal their name, but they are a small time star in the television. So during the COVID times, they had no work. So it was very unfortunate. They came to me for a consultation, and they were very desperate to know what was going to be their future. And around the time, around 2020s onwards, this person entered the Mahadasha of Venus, which was getting connected with the 10th house, and the Venus is retrograde in the natal chart. So they had terrific problems with regard to their career. They had no assignments to work. Very sad state. Okay, so I gave them some remedy. I hope they were doing well now. In case if they are viewing this video, I would say please drop your comments on this video. But yes, whenever a retrograde Venus gets connected with the 10th house, problematic, absolutely problematic, right? Now let's see what happens when a retrograde Venus gets connected with the 11th house. As it is, I keep saying 11th house is the house of gains. Okay, except if you have an ascendant such as Aries or Libra or Capricorn, where the 11th house becomes a Badak Sthan. Okay, other than that, okay, 11th house is always a house of gains. Even though it could be a Badak Sthan, it is also the house of gains, right? So the only problem what I see whenever a retrograde planet gets connected with the 11th house is delays. Okay, that is no exception to Venus. I've said this to almost all the planets that I've done, all the retrograde planets videos that I've done till now. So a retrograde Venus getting connected with the 11th house, definitely there will be delays, right? Now let's see what happens when a retrograde Venus gets connected with the 12th house. See, this is again a very bad placement for any planet. Venus is no different in this case. Okay, I've seen extreme cases where women accuse men by saying that they try to harass them sexually. So if you have a retrograde Venus getting connected with the 11th house, especially for a male chart, be very careful while dealing with women. I give this warning to everybody who always have the companionship of women, and they have a retrograde Venus getting connected with the 12th house. People, especially women, will easily misunderstand you. Your intentions can be easily misread by them, right? See, 12th house is also the house of loss. So a retrograde planet or any planet getting connected with the 12th house is bad. Add to that, if it is retrograde, it is worse. So women will always have a problem in understanding you because 12th house is the house of loss again, right? I've also seen cases where they have divorce in the extreme case. Somebody came to me for a consultation where they had Venus, retrograde Venus getting connected with the 12th house. So the first question that I asked him, the gentleman, was, sir, are you undergoing any problem in your marital relationship? He says, look, I was contemplating a divorce, a separation. So retrograde Venus getting connected with the 12th house will have problems in relationship, especially if you're men. For women, you will have problems with your peer groups. Like similar effects what you see in the 6th house, you will see a similar result in the 12th house too, right? Add to this, if you're planning to move to a foreign country and settle down, there is again problem. See, 12th house also deals with foreign land. And most of these Western countries, they have all the beautiful sceneries that they show in the television or the movies. They just to lure people to come down and settle in their foreign land. Okay, I have seen a retrograde Venus person getting connected with the 12th house will have difficulty in settling in a foreign land. Okay, so these are some problems which can be easily identified and spoken whenever you have a retrograde Venus getting connected, right from the first house till the 12th house, right? I hope this video or the series of video that I've done in retrograde motion has been interesting. Okay, once again I would request the audience who have coming to my video for the first time to please go through all the other videos on retrograde placement of planets. I've given you the link in the description box, right? And needless to say, in case if you have any doubts in astrology, especially with regard to consultation, you can please WhatsApp me on my number. Again, the details have been given in the the description box. You can take up an appointment with me and do a detailed consultation, right? Further, I'm getting good response for native who want to learn astrology under me. So I would be coming out with more videos on what do I teach in astrology, or how is my style of predicting a natal chart is different vis-a-vis anybody else. Okay, so this will be an eye opener to somebody who still have some doubt, should I come and learn astrology under you? Okay, so just give me some more time. Maybe the next video or the subsequent video thereafter will certainly be on how to read a natal chart, the technique that I follow, right? So until then, I would request you to allow me to sign off for the day, and I would request for all the healthy comments to come down on the comment box, and you can look forward for more videos in the days to come, right? I'm signing off for the day. Thank you.